You can't go wrong with a good old murder mystery now and again. And 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 while they're not usually the type of films I'd watch all the time, I can understand the appeal of of finding out who done it, how they did it, and what I did it. And it's always fun to what watch these films and try. I have your own opinions and your own guesses. But sometimes you can guess it straight away, and other times it's a lot more trickier than you might think. I think in one of the best examples of these in recent years would be with the Knives Out films. You had the first film that was released at the end of 2019, which I thought was a really good and clever film. It did a good job explaining this mystery, and what I did kind of under guess as who the killer was. It was one of those films where, yeah, I had an idea who the killer was, but I was also so double questioning in myself of if I was right about out who it actually was. Then you have the second film released at the end of 2022. If not, I was out. At first, I was a little bit off that at the end decided to take a play a student coat. Over time, I'm not because it was a bad idea. It's just since it's cut over with it has not only just finished. I did think it was too early to do a movie set in those times. But when you put those times aside, I honestly think that film was even better than the first film. It had a more interesting mystery, and there were a lot more twists and turns where I liked the first one. I was questioning myself if I really got the killer right. Right, and not to mention that without going into spoilers, it has one of the most satisfying villain defeats you'll ever see in a Netflix film. Right, and now we come to the newest Knives Out mystery, Wake Up Dead Man. And I actually saw no trailers or promotion for this film. I was going to go in completely blind, and seeing as I really liked the first two films, and I thought to myself that there was a good chance, and that I was going to like that. Yeah, this one too. That, and well, many critics have said that this film is downgrade from previous two films. It is still a really solid film on its own. So I popped it on, gave it a watch, and I don't know if this will be a controversial hot take or not, but I found this film to be really disappointing. Now, I wouldn't go and say that this is bad at all. Or I actually don't think that this is a bad movie. But it is one of the... But compared to the other two, not only do I agree with most critics when they say this is the weakest of the three, but this is the only one on the ether. I'm not quite sure if this is what I'd want to watch. I'll start out with the things I thought were good about this film, because there were plenty things I really liked about this film. And for starters, all the actors did a fantastic job with the performances. I think all the lead performance was easily the best one. Sorry, I can't really remember the actor from my head, but the one who played the leading priest, he did a really good job of the performance. I thought Jeremy Renner did really good as the Doctor. And like the previous two films, Daniel Craig does steal the show as Benedict. However, I do think his performance is definitely good in this film. I do think Craig does go a bit over the top in some moments. It can sometimes sometimes help and can lead to some decent comedy. But there are times where I did think he went a little too overboard with his performance in this film. Um, I also really like the second act of the as soon as that as Benedict Blanc enters the feet each action, and we begin in trying to solve this mystery, that's when I found myself to be even most invested with the film. I'll admit I wasn't really questioning myself as much as the previous two, because this is one of those where I definitely guessed who the culprit it's what right away. But it was still good to figure out instead of who did it. It was more fun to figure out how they did it. And I liked the previous two films, and this film was very literally splendid, dude. As this film takes place in a more church, the film feels and looks a lot more like a classical detective film compared to the other two, where it does feel like a detective film. You get at the 19s and late 60s. I found to be a pretty good and enjoyable touch. I did help me get invested with the visual world of the film. However, while there are things I really do like about this movie, everything else really does fall flat for me. Now with the first act of the film, I get that it's trying to be a setup, like setting up everything before, or the victim death, which in this case is a truck. I will submit effort, and that causes trouble for his church. I try to go at the choices at most of the characters' motives of why they probably do it. However, here's my problem. Most of the characters does feel like they have the same motive, because the reference sucks. That seems like to be the motive of most characters, to the point where there's no everyone understands out. Oh yeah, you've got some interest in victims, like the doctor, and the author that writes murder story, or and they were often characters, but nothing really changed their motive. It's to the point where I just thought every character was pretty much the same. And as for Ben, and not only do I think Daniel Craig can get a bit over the top in some moments, and I was surprised to find there were some moments that, well, I did find him to be a bit unlikable. Like, he's not definitely a terribly written character or anything like that. It's just some of the interactions with him and father that I really don't work. I find that interactions feel. There's also a chat. I have reflected on Blanc's Anne has her own suspicions of the priest that, and it's a point where she is determined to put Earthsman away, but that's all she is. The main and sheriff as determined to put the top suspect away. But I will admit, And like I said before, the second act was really good to the point where I thought it was going to save the film. Like, yeah, the film didn't have a great beginning, and I'll say that the pacing in the first act was really slow. I did struggle to get properly engaged with it, but I was really liking the second half, and I thought it would lead to a strong finale. Boy, was I wrong. It's honestly hard for me to talk about spoilers, but I'll say there's one twist near the end of the second related to the murder victim, and without going into spoilers, Oilers, I honestly found it to be quite like that. Or also when it came to the true main culprit or culprits of the crime, I easily guessed it was them right either way. I'll admit I didn't fully guess their plan, but when they end up revealing their plan, I don't blame John for thinking that this was impossible to solve a case, because I barely understand the main the culprit's plan, and I honestly thought it was quite convoluted and pretty confusing. Not to mention there were a lot of plot holes left in holes in the plot, and that did make it feel a lot less believable than it actually was. So overall, while I can't say Wake Up Dead Man and Knives Out Mystery is a bad film, it is definitely one of the most disappointing movies of the year. Well, there are definitely some good aspects of it. It like a great visual, and strong on production design, on talented acting, and a pretty interesting second half. The first and third acts felt all really flat with quite a dull story. Characters we know pretty little about. Our Anna mystery is that all it is for Untry Soul. Does get a lot more convoluted and confusing when it's all revealed in the end. And I've definitely seen in worse movies if he's this shit. Yeah. But seeing as I really like the first two films, I came into this one and I was just really disappointed by the main result. I guess if you like the first two films, you may enjoy this one, but I recommend not to set your expectations too high. You may like this more than I did, but seeing as some critics also like this film, I thought it was the weakest of the trilogy. Don't expect this to be as good as something like the first film or Glass Onion. And I'm actually glad that the director is planning to do more Knives Out movies. And there's a good chance, and so they'll probably turn up at this one. But of all the three we got so far, this is easily Benedict Blanch's weakest mystery. Yeah, and that's why I'm giving the film a 5.5 out of 10. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!